Hello, welcome back. Today, let's talk about motorbikes. So motorbikes are the modern equivalent of the horse. The way you swing your leg over the saddle, put your feet on the pegs as if they are stirrups, and push that start button while saying giddy up. It's an adventure machine just like in the Wild West days, horses were to the cowboy. Now there are people that say, no, you're wrong. The car is the modern replacement to the horse. But in fact, the car is the replacement to the carriage, and the engine is the replacement to the horse, hence the word horsepower. What I mean is, as a direct one-for-one replacement, the motorbike is the modern steed. As roads and infrastructure have advanced so much, there are specific bikes that are targeted now for specific uses, such as road bikes, off-road bikes, scooters, or mopeds, each one having a primary use either on or off the pavement. There has been one category of motorcycle that has stood the test of time and carried on as the original replacement for the horse, and that is, of course, the adventure motorcycle. In recent times, there has been an influx into this category, as it has previously been stuck in the background, taking a back seat to the need for speed as everyone wanted a road bike, whether it be a cruiser or a crutch rocket, or the need for a weekend dirt squirter. Each bike still had a very specific purpose. Don't get me wrong, there have always been people modifying bikes and travelling around adventuring, doing what they do. But it wasn't until 1980 when a struggling company called BMW released their saviour, the R80 Gs. This bike was the first to come equipped with disc brakes, a monoshock rear end and dual purpose tyres. With a whopping 797.5, don't forget the half, cc engine capable of 50 horsepower and 56 foot-pounds of torque, it was enough to top out at 167 kilometers an hour. BMW then entered this bike in the Paris-Dakar Rally with great success. After the race, they released a limited Paris-Dakar Rally version of the bike with a larger fuel tank, single seat, luggage racks, crash bars and Michelin off-road tyres direct to the public, thus creating the modern adventure bike and accessory catalogue. Most bike owners, no matter of the brand, now swear the above-mentioned accessories should be standard equipment for every adventure bike. Now, during the lockdown of the virus that must not be named, now seriously, if I mention it, this video will be flagged with all sorts of anti-vax hate speech, I personally sold my motorbike. Now, why would I do such a thing? I used this bike as a daily commuter when I lived in Canberra and Sydney, which had paved roads 40 to 50 minutes each way every day, and this bike was great for that. So this bike was a Yamaha FZ6N, and being a naked bike, it had no wind protection whatsoever. But it was fine for those short trips and occasional long rides. After those long rides though, your whole body definitely hurt. Now a few years later, I find myself living back in the country, literally meters away from tracks and dirt roads that wind through national and state parks. And this type of bike was just unable to do that type of riding. So what is the best option for me? A dirt bike? Well, yes and no. A dirt bike would be great for the area around my house, but I want to do more than that. Travel far and wide, go on an actual adventure. So given that brief little history lesson, let's find the best adventure bike to suit me. This video could well and truly upset some people, but I'll try my best to explain why I chose what I did. Now I'm not saying skip to the end and all will be revealed. It could be the very first bike I talk about. Now let's get into what sort of adventure bike I'm after. Something that is suitable for my size, ability to easily do multi-day or week-long trips comfortably, has enough room for camping and camera gear, and a wide range of accessories and spare parts. So the bike needs to be basically a 60-40 or nearly 50-50 on-off road bike. Yeah, that's right, I'm after the unicorn bike. So does this bike exist for me? Let's see what bikes are available in Australia currently that tick these boxes. Okay, so let's look at what BMW Australia has to offer. We scroll down to adventure bikes. Get here soon. Yep, there we go. Alright, so if I'm being realistic about a BMW adventure bike, the 1250s are just off the table for me. Just too expensive. So starting from $25,000 for the base model before you even start adding anything on. Realistically, there's a few too many electronic aids on these bikes that I'm not really interested in. I'm really not. But if I was in the market for one at the moment, the 850 GS Adventure would be the one for me. The main problem I have with, like, there's heaps of these in Australia. Like, heaps of people touring around on these. Not a problem with the bike. Very reliable. Don't have a problem with that. The problem that I have is that I have a BMW vehicle in the family and have had nothing but trouble with the service side of things. So every time it's gone to get a service, they've damaged it or left things under the engine bay, and they sort of believe it's, you know, not their fault that they leave spanners and whatever sitting on top of the engine. Then I drive 200 k's home and find it. Last time it was there, they damaged a wheel rim and still believe that, oh, it was one of their people that they had washing the vehicle that did that, but that's not their problem. So their after sales service, well, even when you're paying for a service, it sort of turned me off buying anything else BMW. So that's where I'm going to leave it for BMW. You know, if they can change my mind in the future, I'd like to see them try, but at this stage, I'm not spending my money on something that, if I'm in the middle of Australia somewhere with a broken part and I ring up to get that part shipped out, I can't, you know, guarantee that I'm not going to have ongoing issues trying to get that part from BMW. They just lost all confidence in me at this stage. Alright, so let's see what Suzuki have for us. So, a couple of different categories: road motorcycles, off-road motorcycles. So straight away in their adventure side of things, even based under road, you've got the V-Strom. People take these off-road. I personally don't see these as off-road motorcycles. Yeah, fine for touring on the road, throw some panniers on it and away you go. Occasional little dirt road, but I wouldn't take it on any tracks or four-wheel drive tracks, that sort of thing. So most people in Australia would probably agree with me on that. That is why one of the best-selling adventure style motorbikes ever, the DR650. So why is there a special edition? Well, let's have a look. That is because this is the last year you can buy one of these motorcycles new anyway. So the Tanami edition, equipped with a 20-litre service fuel tank, aluminium bash plate, bark buster handguards, and some new stickers. So for the past 20 years, Suzuki's just been throwing new stickers on this bike anyway, so that's new feat there. Alright, so the reason why they're getting rid of this is 2017, Australia passed a law where every new vehicle must be equipped with ABS. Suzuki said, no, we're not going to do that. So they got a little bit of an exemption for the next few years, as long as they didn't change the bike, because this is still based off, 20-year-old technology. So is this a good bike? Well, for the price, 11,800 at the moment, you're better off buying this than a second-hand one. As you know, with anything second-hand, the market is through the roof. So you're better off just ordering one and waiting if you're after something like this. This will be fine around, this sort of area where I am. But if I start doing long adventure rides, traveling interstate, that sort of thing, yes, you can modify it and do whatever you want with it, but let's just say straight from the factory, not the most comfortable thing to ride personally on long trips. So this bike has more than proven that it's capable of handling the Australian terrain. Not a problem there at all. Given it's single cylinder, air cooled or air oil cooled, it's just a go anywhere machine. Still has a carby. That is one negative tick in the box for me. I'm sick of things with carbies just constantly breaking down on me. So it's unfortunate that Suzuki don't have something else to replace this. I haven't seen any documentation on what will or if anything is going to replace this at this point in time. I'm sure it would, given that adventure bikes are the sort of biggest category at the moment. It's what most people are after. But yeah, honestly, I can rule this one off the list. Just not for me. So Suzuki, off the list. So let's look at the offerings from Kawasaki. Alright. KLR 650. That is generally it. Off-road, dual sport, 250, 230. Not big enough. 650 sort of the limit where it's at. And looks like they got like a similar deal going to what Suzuki have at the moment. Showing off some panniers, some driving lights, bash plate. So pretty much to sell the bike. At least they're advertising it as an adventure bike. So additional vehicle features, 2-position adjustable windshield, that's always handy. Aluminium rear carrier, increased generator capacity, so larger alternator. Panniers with 1 key system, DC, USB outlets. So pretty much they're advertising it as a good to go, don't need anything else, throw some luggage in there, put your tent across the back, and off you go. The only problem I have with these is they feel a bit cheap. And power to weight, they're heavy, they're underpowered. It just felt wrong sitting on the bike. I'm sure they're good for a lot of people, but for me, like the dealer I dealt with also sells as a dealer for Kawasaki, so it was a good comparison between the bikes that I'd end up choosing. So 28 kilowatts, it's not, compression's pretty low, which can be a good thing if you've got dodgy fuel, you've got really low octane fuel, low compression. But one issue I did come across with this, the same as the DR, 5-speed gearbox only. You're always after that little bit more for the highway. So for touring, long distance, it just didn't suit exactly what I was after. Like, they're having a good go. Throwing on some adventure related materials out there straight out of the factory. And also being a single displacement. The twins just felt a lot better, especially for the longer distance stuff. A lot better sound, in my opinion, anyway. I like what they're trying to do, but this bike just didn't quite suit everything that I was after. This bike is not for me. So Triumph I really like. The problem we've got at the moment is if we were to, let's say, we'll just explore the adventure catalogue. There's a fair bit of range at the moment. So the 900 Rally being the new bike, price similar again to the Teneres, the Ducati, KTMs, the Husqvarna. The only problem we've got is it's a bit of a wide range here. So we go from a 660 to an 850 to a 900. I believe the 850 still use the older engine, and the 900, so it's like an 870 or an 880cc. The new 900 only has 6 or 7 more horsepower than the 850. But even just to look at these, let's go like a rally range. So straight away, they're advertising that one, road-based, high-spec road focus. But then we'll just go back and click on the rally range. A dual purpose capability, but yet again, they show it on the road. Oh, there we go, got some knobbies on there. So from a factory, what do you get? The pictures between the 900 Rally and the 900 don't really show that much difference. And then of course you've got a bike that probably no one's going to be able to get, being 250 worldwide. All their pictures seem to be more road based. Shows you the differences between what you get. It has that plus all that. Alright, heated grips. Everyone seems to put heated grips on their bike. I've lived in some cold parts of Australia, like Canberra gets in the minuses. I was riding in the winter every day, just with some good gloves, and that was fine. I still did not have a need for heated grips. It's just all little things. Tire pressure monitoring. That doesn't really worry me too much. Heated rider and pillion seats. Now, if you're off-road and you're standing, what good is a heated seat going to do you? So I'll put these back into more road-orientated adventure bikes. Like even their pictures, they're trying to sell it more for the road than off-road. Like you can type what you want here, but the pictures, you know, show 1,000 words. Full-on off-road fun. Now where's the off-road fun? Oh yeah, we get a video of going in some sand. And parked on some gravel. But everything else, you know, depicts as an on-road bike. Yeah. Honestly say this one is not for me. So a big leader in Australia and worldwide, KTM, very popular machines, really. We'll go check out travel. So there's a wide variety of what people use enduro, you know, adventure bikes. So honestly, Adventure R890, 1290 isn't that just too big for what I want to do. I'm not a big guy, but I want something I can still, you know, throw around a little bit. Straight away, as compared to what Triumph we're trying to sell, we're off-road, we're going up a hill. This is what we're all about. Straight away, you know, dual-purpose tyres. A serious travel-capable off-road motorcycle. There you go. We're not trying to flog it off as an on-road bike that can go off-road. This is an off-road bike that can also travel the streets. So good service interval on the bike. You hear a lot about these bikes having fuel pump issues. Could be a problem. I don't think I've seen one video where someone's been traveling around Australia on one of these bikes that seems to not have an issue with the fuel. Not sure if they've fixed it on newer bikes. There's a lot of electronics on this bike. That's one thing that could be a bit of a turn off for me. So motorcycle traction control. See, good on road, not so good off road. Traction control, your wheel starts to slip. You can set the adjustment on it, so you can have different bias as to when you let it slip or grip. Seems to be a bit of stuffing around. And then if you dunk this in a river, what's going to happen to all the electronics? Yeah, it's well powerful, like 77 kilowatt, 100 newton meters of torque, 6-speed. No problems there whatsoever. But is it too powerful? So if you just took that down just a little bit, would you still need a little traction control? Dry weight 196. So what are we looking at fuel wise? Fuel tank 20 litres. So 200 and, you know, just under 220 curb weight. Yeah, people say that, you know, the Yamahas can get a bit heavy, but they're all around the same. Seat height. Do they have seat height anywhere on this? Yeah, seat height. Seat height 880. See, perfect. Between 850 and 900 is sort of my comfortable seat height. And yeah, awesome suspension travel front and rear. Okay, so this bike is definitely a contender. And look at all the dealers, service centres, that sort of thing. I'll just zoom in. So if we were to do any north to south, east to west trip, you know, finding a dealer to help you out, not a problem. Like even NT, South Australia, or it could be borderline. What we got? You know, a couple in Adelaide. there's not much up this part of South Australia anyway. So all the major cities and a few inland, large regional areas are still covered. That's what you want to see. So as I said before, KTM does have a bit of a foothold in Australia. Therefore, it's definitely a contender. It's definitely one on the list. Okay, favourite of mine. I really like these bikes, the Husqvarna range. Always have, ever since I've been a little kid. So let's check out what they currently have available in the travel range. So, new Northern 901 and 701 Enduro. Let's check out the Northern 901. What I really like about this bike is the looks of this bike. Given it is the same engine as the KTM 890. Obviously because KTM own Husqvarna now. The price is probably one of the most expensive ones. It's full of tech, this bike. This bike is ridiculous, which is a bit of a turn off for me, honestly. It's a brand new bike, hasn't really been tested in Australia just yet. There's a couple of people kicking around on them, but yeah, they've taken a lot of things from the KTM 890 anyway and just put it in a different package. So realistically, you should have the same problems on this as what you do on the KTM. Between those two bikes, I would prefer this one, honestly, just purely just based off looks, given that everything else is nearly identical between the two bikes. But the electronic side of things could just be a little bit too much. Now, I liked the original, I think it was back in 2010, Husqvarna came out with the Nuda 900 and the Nuda 900R. It was a parallel twin. That thing just sounded amazing. The thing with KTM and this Husqvarna, the sound, I don't know, the sound of the bike just isn't quite there. It's just, you start it up, something just sounds like it's rattling around. It's just not a smooth sort of, I don't know, it's not a smooth feeling with the bike. But yeah, I do look forward to see what happens with these bikes in the future. They fix all the little niggles and that sort of thing, but it's definitely on the list if the bike that I've purchased falls through. And when I say falls through, I mean they don't get it in time for when they said they're going to get it in, which we might have a look at in a minute. Okay, so Royal Enfield, even though it's the oldest motorcycle company in the world, hasn't really been, all out blazing in Australia. You don't really see a lot of these kicking around. This is all their new lineup, and you hear of Himalayans touring around. So I decided to have a look into what they're offering. So it's an air-cooled engine, same as the DR. The problem that I have with it is it's just too small. So it's a bit of a little bike. I believe the seat height on this is like 800 millimeters, which is the same height as the seat height on my FZ6N that I had. Be fine for short trips, but yeah, it's too small for me. So good seat height for me is around 870 to 900. I'm 6'2". This bike is just a little bit too small, a little bit underpowered, and a little bit heavy. So there's people just plottering around on these. Don't know about reliability of these. Once again, so if I was in the middle of Australia somewhere trying to get parts, could be fun. So let's actually have a look at the dealer search. So if we just put Melbourne postcode in, right, so there's a few dealers. That's what's available in Sydney. So let's say we're doing a trip up the coast. Alright, so there's a fair few dealers, really. also in Queensland. Yeah, so if you're doing like an East Coast trip, that's not too bad. So getting parts in that shouldn't be an issue if something was to happen, or be able to stop into a service centre somewhere. Not too sure about that colour. Yeah, that one's good. That one's good. Don't mind that. Nah. One little bit of blue to rest black. Not really a fan of that. So if I was to weigh it up, if I was to get, you know, be that or that, I think Mirage Silver in those colours. But yeah, haven't heard much about reliability of these. I think they still need to do a long-term test in Australia. But yeah, that is something that's available, but not for me, unfortunately. Let's jump it up a few levels and check out what Ducati's got. So of course, you know, the Multistrada, that is way out of the price range, but I noticed they released this not too long ago. So it's up there in the power stakes, 202 kilograms. I believe that's the same as the Tenere. Let's check this one out. From when I first looked at this bike, I actually like this bike, but there's a couple of issues. Oh, of course. A couple of issues with this at the moment. Not so much this bike, but just Ducati in general. In that serviceability, lack of dealerships. If you're touring around Australia, amount of accessories available for this bike, just sort of non-existent at the moment. Nice flat seat, and the electronics on this thing could be a little bit too much as well. But it's around the same price as the KTM 890s, the new Tenere, and the Husqvarna Norden 901. So those sort of 3-4 bikes are all around the same price range, being 24. It's probably, you know, a couple of $1,000s in between them all, but yeah. So looks wise, I really like the look of this bike. It's just the electronics and the serviceability for these. I really like the look and the specs of this bike, except for the electronic side of things. It just could have a little bit too much. What are we looking at? So 937cc. So it's up there in the power stakes. Could be a little bit too much. And I'll show you another problem with Ducati. Alright, so we've got one in Tasmania, 2 in Victoria, 1 in the ACT, 5 in New South Wales, nothing in Queensland, and you know, nothing over the west side or even South Australia. So let's say, you know, a pretty popular track to do is to go up through the middle, you know, Birdsville, across the Simpson Desert. Something happens in here. Closest is Adelaide. Is there anywhere in Adelaide that you can deal with? At this stage, it looks like no, so you'd have to get it shipped somewhere. It's just, I think it's a too new a bike, and Ducati, yeah, they want to sell their bikes, but they don't want people to go very far on them, it seems. Like I'm planning to go, you know, to the west coast, the westernmost coast of Australia, which is around here somewhere. And also Cape York, so Cape York trip even. So from Gippsland, where I am down here, head north, there's nothing to get to the tip. That's a long way. Like a standard motorcycle shop can help you out with the basic things, but if you need something, you know, it's a big warranty issue. So if I was to buy a new bike at the moment, it seems that, you know, they only want you to run around close to the capital cities. you have any problems out here, I don't know how you'd go. As much as I like this bike, I don't think it's for me. Alright, so Yamaha, they've done wonders in the past few years regarding the changes and development of their bikes. So we'll just check out the off-road bikes. So Motocross, Enduro, Fun, Adventure. Well, we want an adventure bike, so let's check that out. Straight away, that looks like an adventure, doesn't it? Hanging off a cliff. What options do we have? 1200 too big, the New World Raid, and the 700. So I've checked out the standard 700. One thing that they've got going for them is they've chosen engine platform that's usable across quite a number of their bikes. MT-07, the Tenere, and a Tenere World Raid. They came out with this a few years ago, had great success with it. So when I went and checked these out, the only real issue that I had is the height of the fuel tank. So it's a massive bump, sits up there. People say it's top heavy. I didn't really find it that bad really. Didn't have a problem with it. It's just that bump. So once you put like a tank bag on there, you got something, you know, sitting up pretty high. I just thought, well, if they could fix that, that would solve my issues. People were like, "Oh, I'll put an aftermarket fuel tank on it, it'll be fine." Yeah, then you're changing the looks of it. And there was still nothing that didn't really get rid of that hump. It wasn't like a smooth like linear seat progression between that and the fuel tank. That was the issue that I had with it. Everything else didn't really have a problem with it. As everyone knows, getting accessories for these bikes, service centers all around Australia, that's not a problem. Yamaha's been in Australia for forever. Very similar to Honda. I think Honda's in the same position as what Yamaha were probably 5-6 years ago. I'm currently trying to find something to progress with and stick with it. Yamaha have done that with the Tenere and the CP2 engine that's with these. The last rumours that I heard were they were going to take the MT-09 engine and make a Tenere 900 to replace the Super Tenere. So then they have more of an adventure range rather than more on-road basis, being the Super Tenere, trying to make it more 50-50. When I looked at the standard Tenere 700, the World Raid didn't exist yet, but we'll get to that in a minute. Alright, so what's different about the standard Tenere and the World Raid? Same engine, pretty much new dash, upgraded suspension, but the one thing I really like about it, dual side mounted fuel tanks. A lot lower fuel tank and a lot more linear progression between the seat and the fuel tank. So the fuel tank does put it up in a weight a little bit, so we're carrying 23 litres now as opposed to 16. I believe the seat height on this is 890 from when I looked at it off the top of my head. Yep, seat height 890 and wet weight of 220 kilos. So all these bikes are still sitting, you know, low 200s to 220 kilos, this whole range. So when people go, "Oh, it's a very heavy bike compared to such and such," it's not really. And of course you're going to put panniers on there and luggage and that sort of thing anyway, so you'll be putting, you know, 30 plus kilos of luggage on there, especially me, you know, if I'm carrying camera gear, tripods, that sort of thing. So this one is definitely in the running. What I do like about the Tenere is the lack of electronics. So you get ABS and that's generally about it. The World Raid, you can choose between ABS on front and rear, ABS off rear, or ABS off for both. That's what I do like about it. And obviously the sound of the Tenere engine, if you compare this to a KTM or the Husqvarna, it uses the same engine. This bike does sound a lot better than the KTMs or Husqvarnas. straight out of the factory before we start putting aftermarket parts on it. And how they're trying to sell it, like it's straight away trying to be sold as an adventure machine. Yeah, pop a wheelie, that's all good, but it's not. I can't. Where's a road picture? Is there a road picture anywhere? Adjustable dampener for off-road, that always helps. Switchable ABS. Yeah, so there's no. All the same thing. They're not trying to flog it off as a road bike that can go off-road. This is an off-road bike that you can use public roads for to get where you need to go comfortably. And that's what I'm looking for, really, something like that. Like all these pictures here. Let's have a look. Is there a road? Fair enough, this is probably their press launch, but this is how they're trying to sell the bike. They're not even one picture of a road anywhere. Alright, so that one is definitely on the list. Honda, the one company that has completely lost its way, especially in Australia. The reason why I say that is, if we just scroll down, let's have a look. Adventure Touring, Africa Twin, yeah, long distance tourer, no problems there, except now, you know, they have automatic, which, yeah, that's whatever. And then we go straight from, you know, a large motorcycle to a CB500X, which it's a road bike. There's nothing in between. So CB500X, they nailed the 300 rally. Not a problem there at all. That is designed, that is fit for purpose. Too small for me. So not a problem there. So realistically, what's in between the 300 and the big Africa Twin? Nothing. That's a road bike. Now, if we lived in America, they still have the XR650. The reason why this doesn't exist in Australia is the same reason as Suzuki have dropped the DR. No ABS. So that is gone from Australia. They did not think of anything to replace this with. I have seen rumours of a 500-600cc version of like a scaled down Africa Twin, but there's going to be a gap in the market for a good 2-3 years where people are going to find something else that are in the market, like what I am now. I was in the market for something. Honda can't fill that. They've got nothing. So it's a bit disappointing on Honda's behalf, because there are other bikes, competition bikes, all CRFs, that sort of thing, super sport bikes, they nail it. Yet they've just forgotten about the fastest growing market being adventure touring. I really don't know. Like, I've owned Honda cars in the past, and you could just see the progression downwards. They just stopped caring, make their money, and that's about it. So they'd want to come up with something very good to fill this gap to get people back on board again. Alright, so another company that's sort of new to the adventure game, Aprilia. Very popular in road circles. But what have we got here for off-road or adventure? Touareg 660. Oh, little video, we'll scroll down. Alright, so specs wise of this bike, looks of this bike, I really like. This thing ticks all the boxes for what I'm after. Really, really like this bike. There's nothing on this bike that I really don't like. The downfall, unfortunately, of this is there are not many Aprilia dealers in Australia, and it falls under the same issues that we have with Ducati. Just trying to get service parts in the middle of nowhere is going to be a nightmare. And being a new bike to the market, accessories, unless you get everything through Aprilia, it's going to be crazy trying to find any aftermarket parts for these at the moment. So if these bikes are popular in Europe, I can't see an issue with these in Australia maybe in the next 3 or 4 years, especially if they start increasing service centers, that sort of thing. But yeah, there's this bike I really, really like. It's just unfortunate that I'm after a bike now, and This bike didn't come out, 2-3 years ago. Okay, so what bike did I actually choose? Well, it came down to looking at a lot of bikes for a long time, looking at all different specs, what was possibly coming up, what was going to be released. It all seems to be kept pretty quiet up until the 16th of February this year, when I saw this video. So that announced the release of the new World Raid 10 So straight away, I jumped onto the Yamaha Australia website, sent them an email, and to see when these would be available in Australia, as that was the release date, saying that they're going to be released in Europe, and expect them before the end of the year. Now, I sent an email to Yamaha saying, yep, good that they're going to get released. Do you have a date for release in Australia? So within, I think it was within 20 minutes, I got a response back from Yamaha, like very quickly, and it said, at this stage, there is nothing confirmed about the World Raid Edition and release date in Australia. If and when there are more details, we'll be sure to make it clear with articles on the Yamaha Motor Australia website. So I was like, oh, that's a bit interesting, because it's just been released for Europe, been released for North America, yet there was no release date for Australia. So this is the 16th of Feb. The very next day, 17th of Feb, Yamaha Australia release saying, yes, it's coming. It'll be here the first quarter of 2023. So the first quarter, that's January through to April. I was like, oh, geez, that's a long time. But it sort of worked out for the best for this, because I've got so much to do this year anyway. I wouldn't have had time to write it. So that was the 16th of Feb. 17th of Feb, it's released to say, yes, it's available in Australia. The 18th of Feb, I went to my local Yamaha dealer and put a deposit on this bike. Comparing this to the main three bikes I was looking at seriously, was this, the standard Tenere, the KTM 890 Adventure R, and the Husqvarna Norden 901. So obviously this and the standard Tenere use the same engine. The main difference I like this over the standard one is the fuel tanks sit a bit lower, holds more fuel. So when I do longer trips, that is mainly on, main roads, that's where that'll come in handy. You go off road, you don't have to fill them up. I don't have a problem with that at all. The height of the tanks themselves as compared to the seat, I enjoyed that a lot better than the standard Tenere. Upgraded suspension, which is only going to be better for me, being a heavier guy anyway. I may have to upgrade that more, I don't know. But I know definitely on the standard Tenere, that would be something that I'd have to be looking at. What color did I order? They got midnight black or the blue. I ordered the blue. Just want something a bit bright. I didn't want to blend in too much with the dark. Just a bit of colour. A bit of colour is always good. So at the moment, I do just have a deposit on this bike, as final figures for how much this is going to cost don't exist yet for Australia. But if it's all based off what's been released for Europe and North America, it'll sit in a few $1,000s more expensive than the standard Tenere. So it brings it in less than the Husqvarna and the KTM. Main reason is a lot less electronics on this. There's no traction control. It's still cable throttle, cable clutch. All things that I like being off-road. If it was to break, there are ways around it to fix it. If you break a fly-by-wire cable, if you somehow rip the connections out off-road, there's nothing you can do. At least with this, if you break a cable, you can jerry-rig some string to get it all back up and running. Obviously not as well as it would, but at least you can get it up and running again. The engine on this has been around a while now, in a wide range of different motorcycles for Yamaha. It's tried and tested So don't really have a problem with this power plant whatsoever. So yeah, so that was my decision for this one, and I look forward to actually seeing them in the country and getting when it arrives. So hence all the, all the lockdown leftover videos I've been posting, trying to get things all sorted before this arrives and start going on some trips. And at least then I have a spot to put this when it does come in. Alrighty, see you in the next one.